Hello Mellow family, this is Killian. I'm the head of engineering at Mellow Boards, and today we want to answer some questions towards the motor of the Mellow board and what makes the motor so special. General design of the Mellow motor is a brushless DC outrunner. What does that mean? That means that the outer part of the motor is turning and the inner part is static. So you have the inside of the motor, which is connected to the hanger, that carries the coils of the motor, and on the outside, inside the bell, there's the magnets. Why do we use an in-wheel motor on the Mellow Drive? So first point of that is that the in-wheel motor is freely spinning and therefore gives you a really authentic skate feeling. Second part is that in-wheel motors, brushless DC motors, are maintenance free in general. So there's no care you have to do with the motor. You don't have belts that break down that have to be replaced. It is just a really slick part, and the design is beautiful. So the hanger just blends right into the motor, and therefore it's beautiful. Is this an off-the-shelf product, the motor, or was that specially made for us? So the motor for the Mellow Drive was developed in Switzerland by a great motor developer, and it is specially made for our specification. It's only made for the use in electric skateboards, and therefore it's exactly what we need. What is so important about thick motor wires? If you look at this is like terribly thick wires inside this motor, and it's really precisely wound. So why do we do this? First of all, the thicker the wire, the lower the internal resistance of the motor gets, the more current you can get into the motor, and therefore the more magnetic field you can create. Also, even if it's sort of a little brain fuck, the thicker the wire is, the closer you can wind them together. So the thicker the wire, the smaller gaps between the wires, the more copper you get onto the motor, and again, therefore, the more magnetic field you can create. If you use very thin wires, it's terribly easy to wind it, but we don't like easy, and there's like tiny little gaps between the wires because they twist up, and these gaps add up to really low filling factor. So this motor has a really great filling factor. Do the Mellow motors get hot? And the answer to this is no. Question: why don't they get hot? Because the efficiency of this motor is up to 90%, meaning like 90% of the electric energy you put into the motor gets turned into mechanical movement instead of heat. Electric appliances tend to heat up a lot, and that's because they are cheaply made, and therefore efficiencies aren't that high. If you put your hand behind your vacuum cleaner, for example, I mean, vacuum cleaners are great heaters. They say they have a huge amount of power, but actually they have a huge power intake, not necessarily a huge power output. And we're terribly proud of this super high efficiency we could achieve with this. How much torque does a motor like this create? The Mellow motor creates 3.5 Newton meters of torque. We started in the Kickstarter campaign with 1.5 Newton meters, and during the time of the development we upped that over 100%. So this is the strongest in-wheel motor in the industry, and you can be looking forward to that. Why do we use arced magnets, not flat magnets? So if you look inside this motor bell, you see that the magnet is as round on the outside as the motor bell is on the inside. And what this does is it avoids a gap between the rotor bell and the magnet. That again adds to higher torque, and if you get a higher torque at the same current, then you're more efficient. Can the bearings inside the motor be changed? Important for maintenance. The small bearing on the outside is put into the wheel, and it is a standard 608 bearing that you can get in any skate shop. That's super easy to change. The big bearing on the other side of the motor is twice as strong as the other bearing, so it actually never has to be changed. If you get into a situation where you start thinking it might be fun to jump off cliffs with this, then possibly you will have to change the bearing over time, sometime. And this can be done in service. So this is a really, really strong 9mm wide bearing. Is the Mellow Drive waterproof? And the answer to this is yes. So you gotta understand, when you live in a place where it possibly could rain once or twice a year, then you really can't do with water resistant. Water resistant means nothing. Waterproof by IP65 means you can hose this thing down anytime. And how do we achieve this? First of all, the motor internally is sealed by a rubber seal going all the way around. And on either side, the bearings are sealed with rubber caps, and in addition they are grease filled. This combination leads to totally maintenance-free bearing, and there's no water ever getting inside the Mellow motor. Only important thing is, when you do change the wheel and get a different bearing, make sure this is a bearing that's grease filled and has these two rubber caps. But you can find them anywhere. They're standard parts. That's it for today for our episode on the motor questions. If you have any more interest in nerdy details, you can find us on Instagram on The Endless Nerdistan. If there's very special questions, address them to me. I'm on Instagram, The Endless Engineer. And until that, keep riding, stay mellow. See you soon.
Oh fuck, Alter, das hat nicht aufgenommen.
Willst du mich verarschen? Ja, du verarschst mich.